Good morning, everybody. Today, we are going to be talking about God's kingdom and how we, even as small as we are, play a big part in the development of God's kingdom. But before we do that, let's look at our calendar and know that this coming Sunday is the fourth Sunday after Epiphany. So we're still in the color green. So boys and girls and everyone else who's coming to church, please look and make sure the green paraments are out when you come to church on Sunday. The green represents Epiphany. And Epiphany is when what? The light came, when the wise men came and visited Jesus and recognized that he was the light of the world. And that's what Epiphany stands for. Okay, let's go to our lesson for today. We're back here in the Sunday school classroom with our godly play materials. Here's Jesus. And remember that one of the things Jesus did was just walk around, and when a group of people gathered around him, he would teach and he would give stories. He also called those stories parables. Parables are stories that teach a lesson. And today the parable is about the parable of the mustard seed. Now I'm going to show you, this is a jar of mustard seeds. Look how big that jar, that jar is not big, but look how many mustard seeds are in there. I wouldn't even begin to guess how many mustard seeds are in there. Mustard seeds are very tiny. And if you look, here is one mustard seed. That mustard seed, that tiny little mustard seed, that's so tiny, if I dropped it on the floor, I probably couldn't find it. It's so tiny. But Jesus was telling them that this one tiny mustard seed would grow into a large tree. And they all knew that because this was very common around in their time about mustard seeds, that a mustard seed planted would become a tree. And what happens with that tree? The tree becomes a what? A home for birds, other animals. It gives sustenance. Some animals eat some of the leaves. The birds build nests. It's a shelter. Some of the other animals maybe find a little hole or a burrow and live in them, like the owls or squirrels. They build nests also. So the tree, the mustard tree, from that tiny little seed that I'm pointing to, grew into a big tree. They said sometimes as big as 10 to 12 feet tall. That's tall. A big tree from one tiny mustard seed. And Jesus told them that God said that this mustard seed is like them. One mustard seed can help and provide shelter for so many. The kingdom of heaven, is like this mustard seed. When Jesus started preaching, what did he do? We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. He went out and gathered his disciples. He gathered from Jesus and then he gathered one by one till he had how many? How many boys and girls did we say he had? 12. That's right. He had 12. And with those, they went out, and then he added people that followed them around. He had some of the same people that followed them around. And then after Jesus died and went away, his disciples carried on his work, and they went all over the world. And we know that, and spread God's love and God's news. Kingdom of heaven expanded. The kingdom of heaven is like the tiny little mustard seed. It starts small and grows bigger and bigger. Because guess what? And we all know this. From this tree comes more trees, doesn't it? Because it produces seeds, and the animals carry the seeds around and plant. And so the mustard seed, boys and girls, is how we remember that even though we are small and tiny, we are part of God's kingdom and we help it grow. The parable of the mustard seed, God's kingdom, from small to big, it expands. God's love is everywhere, and we are part of that. Let's say our prayer. Dear God, thank you for sending Jesus, who taught us these wonderful stories about how we should live and how we should be. And all of God's people say, amen.